This fire is the largest of the fires that I make. It's called the Animax. It's also the highest specification fire. It has a wraparound heat shield so that it can be placed closer to walls and furnishings. It has a window in the door which allows you to see the fire burning. Very nice air control system and a securely locking door. The ash is collected in a removable ash pan, so at the end of the week you just take that outside and tip the ash out rather than having to scoop it out through the door, which is the case in my budget models. There is a deflector inside here that pushes the air down into the base of the fire to encourage clean burning, and that's coupled with a double burning plate which is mounted up inside here that allows a double burn before the gases escape out the chimney. These fires are made from recycled materials. Gas bottles is the main part of the body, but there are components that I have made brand new because laser cutting allows me to get the fit absolutely perfectly. The tempered glass for the door is manufactured in Germany. I have my door frames laser cut and they are accurate to within 0.2 of a millimetre. All of the components for the cut are accurate to within 0.2 of a millimetre. These hinge components also, this just means that you will have a completely gas tight, perfectly fitting stove. The heavy steel cook plate on the top, that is fitted, one of the last components to be fitted that allows me to get inside and do the welding before it goes. But I'm going to put these things aside now and I'm going to show you the steps towards building one of these stoves. The first thing we do for putting together a Mighty Mix or a large size Animax stove is to select 2 gas bottles that are exactly the same size. Now people look at a 9 kg gas bottle and they think, yep, it's a 9 kg gas bottle, but they're made in different countries by different manufacturers. They have different wall thicknesses and the diameters vary very slightly. So one of the first things I do is I grab a tape measure and I measure the circumference of the bottle as accurately as possible. Now this one is 1006 millimeters, and seeing as I prepared this one earlier, this one also is 1006 millimeters. They vary by about 10 mils. It's vitally important to get 2 exactly the same, because when the 2 halves come together you can't make a nice weld if one is slightly overlapping the other. So these are perfect. I'll be cutting the tops out of these, you'll see that shortly, and the bottom out of the other one. And then the 2 can be brought together, and then I have a template which wraps around and the door is drawn on, and then I'll be cutting the door. Okay, one of the first things I do is remove the top. I've got a jig that puts this line around here in exactly the right place. After getting the line done, the next thing is to get in with this fine 1mm cutting disc and slice the top off. So here we go. And there we go. These things are always absolutely mint inside. The only place that these gas bottles rust generally is around the bottom from sitting on wet surfaces. That's a fail when it comes to a gas bottle, but because I cut this off to use a different type of bottom on my stoves, it doesn't matter at all. After a sandblast, when they're finished, it comes up like new. Okay, at this stage I'm ready to cut the flue stem hole in the back of the stove. That's done by measuring an equal distance from either side of the door around to the back and making a mark. That gives me the back of the stove in relation to the door, and I use one of these. This is a large hole saw that has to be turned at very slow speed with plenty of cutting fluid on the edge here, and it's a little slow and a little noisy, but it gives me a perfect hole that's exactly the correct diameter for my flue stem to fit into. And that means that once again there's no chance of any gas leakage, and it allows me to weld from the inside so there's no visible welds showing. Here we go. It's not a quiet job, you'll have to bear with me for a minute. In fact, put a pair of these on. Here we go. And because this goes on an angle, there is a slight piece of work to be done in here to make this oval, to make it fit so that that sits on the correct angle like so. So I'll just get to work with the grinder on here, and I think we'll skip to the next part, which is welding the internal components of the stove together.